Yeah, welcome to the last session of Unit 1. In this session, we will focus on income exempt from tax in Ghana. By the end of this session, you should be able to identify and explain various incomes exempt from tax in Ghana. We will be looking at a number of them, but not all. I'll refer you to section 7 of Act 896. There you see a lot of them. So we have salary, allowances, pension, and gratuity of the president is exempt from tax. This means that income earned by President of the Republic of Ghana is exempt from tax. Another income exempt from tax is interest paid to an individual by a resident financial institution. Now, we all know what a resident financial institution is. Also, interest paid to an individual on bonds issued by government of Ghana is also exempt from tax. Then we have capital sum paid to a person as compensation or gratuity in relation to personal injury suffered by that person or the death of another person. So in the case of the personal injury, if as an employee you get injured and you are given some compensation, that money is exempt from tax. However, if let's say a relative, your mother, your sister gets injured and your company gives you money to take care of them, that money is subject to tax because our tax law says that only personal injury suffered by that person is exempt from tax. So this one, the injury is not suffered by the person directly, but rather a third party. Also, interest, dividend, or any other income of an approved unit trust scheme or mutual fund is exempt from tax. Any other income payable under an approved unit trust scheme or mutual fund to a holder or a member of that scheme is also exempt from tax. So these are a few of the income exempt from tax. Kindly refer to the Act for the rest of the income exempt from tax, Section 7 of Act 896. Now let us look at employment income exempt from tax. So apart from the general exemptions that we looked at, the law stipulates income from employment exempt from tax, and this can be found at Section 4 2B of the Income Tax Act. So we have a reimbursement or discharge of a person's dental, medical, or health insurance expenses where the benefit is available to all full-time employees on equal terms. All full-time employees on equal terms. So the key word here is on equal terms. If it is not on equal terms, it is not exempt from tax. Then we have a passage to or from Ghana in respect of that person's appointment or termination of employment, where that person is recruited or engaged outside Ghana, is in Ghana solely for the purpose of serving the employer. The person is not a resident of Ghana. Okay, let's move on. Any provision of accommodation by employer carrying on timber, mining, building, construction or farming business to that person at any place or site where the field operation of business is carried on. Please take notice of this. When we get to employment income, we have something called rent element, and we are going to be applying this rule there. So take notice of the specific businesses. We have timber, mining, building, construction or farming business, and the accommodation is given at the place of operation. Okay, at the place of operation of the business. We also have a discharge or reimbursement by an employer of an expenditure incurred by that person on behalf of the employer that serves that proper business purposes of the employer. That serves proper purposes of the employer. Then we have a severance pay. A severance pay. Then we have a night duty allowance not exceeding 50% of the monthly basic salary of the employee. Please take notice of all these incomes because we are going to be applying them when we get to employment incomes in Unit 3. A night duty allowance not exceeding 50% of the monthly basic salary of the employee. Let us look at industry concession. So one of the aims of the government fiscal policy is to provide incentive to key sectors of the economy to promote economic growth and development. In the Income Tax Act 2015 896, Section 134 and the sixth schedule provide some concessions to industrial establishments. So we will be looking at a few of them. But before that, what is industry concession? Industry concession can be defined as a period where preferential tax treatment is given to certain firms or entities where they either pay low or no tax at all. So within that period, you either pay low or no tax. In the recent budget, the 2023 budget, the government plans to increase the existing concessional rate from 1% to 5% to enhance revenue base. So during the concessional period in Ghana, most businesses pay 1% of their income as tax. But according to the 2023 budget, the government plans to increase this 1% to 5%. So let us look at some of these businesses and the period in which they enjoy industry concession. So subject to Act 896, the income of a person from a farming business in Ghana is exempt from tax. So let's look at the specific farming business. If you are into tree crop, your concessionary period is for 10 years. Your concessionary period is for 10 years. For livestock, fish or cash crop, it is for 5 years. The concessionary period is for 5 years. And in the case of cattle, it is for 10 years. In the case of cattle, it is for 10 years. Please, let's take notice of the number of years. The income of company from an agro-processing business in Ghana is exempted from tax for a period of 3 years. A period of 3 years. However, the income of a company from agro-processing business established in Ghana or after the financial year commencing 1st January 2004 is exempt from tax for a period of 5 years. So if you were established before 2004, your concessionary period is for 3 years, and if you were established after 1st January 2004, it's exempt for 5 years. So currently, any agro-processing business to be established or established after 2004 enjoys concessionary period of 5 years. Then we have the income of a company which produces on a commercial basis cocoa byproducts derived from substandard cocoa beans, cocoa husk, and other cocoa waste as its main raw materials is exempt from tax for a period of 5 years. So for cocoa byproducts, it's 5 years. Then, in case of processing of waste, including recycling of plastic, polythene bag materials for agriculture or commercial purpose. The period is 7 years. the period is 7 years. Then in the case of rural bank, the period is 10 years. The period is 10 years. And then the rent income of a person for any residential or commercial premises is exempt from tax for a period of 5 years. A period of 5 years. Then in the case of construction, for sale or letting of residential premises, the period is also 5 years. The period is also 5 years. Then the income from cocoa of a cocoa farmer is exempt from tax. Please look at the wording. The income from cocoa of a cocoa farmer is exempt from tax. They are not saying that the income of a cocoa farmer is exempt from tax, no, but rather the income from cocoa of a cocoa farmer is exempt from tax. So please don't get confused. Sometimes in our objectives, they play around with these words to confuse students. So please take notice. Then we have Ghana Stock Exchange. They are exempt from tax for a period of 31 years. For a period of 31 years. So the Ghana Stock Exchange before under the at 592 was 25 years. It was 25 years, but currently it is 31 years. 31 years. Then we also have privately owned universities are exempt from tax when they plow back 100% of their profits after tax into the business. 100% of their profits after tax into the business. Now let us look at some definitions of some terms we came across under the industry concessions. So we have cash crops. It includes cassava, maize, pineapple, rice, and yam. Farming business. It means a business of producing crops, fish, and livestock. Then agro-processing business means the business of converting crops, fish, livestock produced in Ghana into edible canned or other packaged products other than in their raw state. Then for tree crops, we have coconut, coffee, oil palm, rubber, and shea nut. So this brings us to the end of today's lesson. We looked at income exempt from tax, employment income exempt from tax, and industry concession in today's session. I believe you enjoyed today's session, and whenever you are quizzed on this area, you'll be able to answer fully